Coming soon to own on
YouTube and Twitch. America's most disturbing serial killer couple. Now, this might be some Bonnie and Clyde, Joker, Harley Quinn type activities, or this might go completely off the rails and be even worse. Let's get straight into it.
Born on November 6th of 1955, Alton Coleman was born in a small, low-income town around 30 miles north of Chicago, Illinois. He had a rough childhood, with a penchant for wetting himself resulting in the cruel schoolyard nickname of Pissy.
Oh shit! I'm sorry. Little nigga pissed himself. Oh, they call him Little Piss.
The humiliation caused Alton to become a quiet, reserved child who preferred solitude to the company of others. Yet it wasn't just the severe bullying that led Alton to lead a lonesome existence. He knew he was different, even as a young child, said a close family friend. But no one would predict just how depraved he would become, how his fascination with the macabre would twist into something unspeakable, leaving scars that would shock the nation of America.
I'm sorry. This nigga Pissy. They call that nigga Pissy. Chicago, Illinois, 1955.
By the time Alton was a teenager, he was known to local police as something of a troublemaker, due to his habit of smashing his neighbors' windows at the Waukegan housing project he called home. As Alton grew older, his penchant for criminality continued, but unlike many of his law-breaking peers, Alton had a knack for beating the system. He was good at conning jurors, said Waukegan Police Lieutenant Mark Hansen. He was smooth as silk, could tell a good story in court. He knew how to make himself look like a decent person. He was conniving like that, a real career criminal. Yet Alton didn't keep himself out of prison by just fooling juries. He was adept in all manners of witness intimidation, too. Bizarrely, many of the people Alton assaulted and robbed over the years were convinced that he was a practitioner of ancient voodoo magic. Yet it also seems that at some point, Alton stopped just talking about curses and vengeful spirits and began to legitimately believe in them. By 1983, Alton's use of drugs and alcohol had caused a stark deterioration in his mental health. Exacerbated by a feverish belief in the power of voodoo, Alton began to display symptoms of several serious psychiatric conditions, terrorizing his family, friends, and neighbors. At one point, Alton's sister reported him to the police after he savagely beat and attempted to violate his own 8-year-old niece. 3 weeks later, she dropped the charges, stating that there had...
What? No. I get that's like, that's your brother and all, but once you have a kid of your own, it's fuck that nigga. He just violated your 8-year-old daughter. Press charges.
been a misunderstanding.
No.
With the victim unable to take the stand and the star witness refusing to testify, the state had no choice but to halt their prosecution, but not before the presiding judge decided to offer his professional opinion. "I think the woman as she stands here today is terrified of this man," he said, and implied that she was somehow covering for Alton when he referred to her version of events completely implausible. It marked the 5th time Alton had been the #1 suspect in an assault case, yet once again, he managed to dodge a conviction.
Wow.
Finally, in early 1983, Alton discovered he was wanted in connection with the violation and murder of a girl from the Chicago suburbs, and he went on the run. It's more than likely Alton knew that he'd be convicted, and since murder in Illinois still carried the death penalty back then, he knew he wasn't long for this world. What resulted was one of the most hideous and violent crime sprees in all of U.S. history, and it begins with a young woman named Deborah Brown.
Chicago, Illinois, 1983.
Deborah had no history of criminality prior to meeting Alton and was engaged to another man before he convinced her to call off the engagement.
Oh, he got it
There's
like
no
that?
doubt that she was madly in love with him, but there's also no doubt that Alton subjected Deborah to horrendous physical and emotional abuse.
Oh my God.
She was one of 11 children, the daughter of an abusive alcoholic father and a heroin addict mother who suffered serious head trauma when she was an infant.
Wow.
As a result, Deborah was slightly slower than her other siblings, and her struggles would result in vicious beatings at the hands of Alton Coleman. Being a known associate of his, Deborah was questioned by police in connection with Alton's whereabouts on June 1st of 1984. She denied all knowledge of his location, then immediately reported back to him. Then on June 5th, they vanished from the city of Chicago. Using fraudulent identification, the couple rented a small apartment in Gary, Indiana, and for the next 2 weeks, they attempted to lie low. But then, on June 18th, 7-year-old Tamika Turks and her 9-year-old aunt went missing while on a routine trip to a nearby convenience store. The older girl was found alive but in critical condition just a few hours later, but little Tamika remained missing. The following morning, the 7-year-old's lifeless corpse was found in an area of woodland just outside of Gary. Someone had quite literally stomped her to death.
Oh my God.
When the 9-year-old awoke in the hospital, she gave a harrowing account of what had occurred. After being abducted at knife point by an older male and female, the 9-year-old had been forced to watch as they held her young niece down and repeatedly jumped on her chest and stomach.
Oh.
The damage fractured ribs and punctured vital organs, leaving the young girl with no chance of survival. The couple then proceeded to brutally beat and torture the older girl, but for some reason chose to leave her alive. She now suffers extreme trauma as a result of the incident and is said to endure debilitating flashbacks. She will get to screaming and crying like someone is hitting her on the back of the head, said Mary Hillard, the child's mother, while Tamika's mother was forced to leave Indiana altogether to escape such painful memories. Just a few hours after Tamika Turk's body was found, 25-year-old Donna Williams was reported missing by her parents. Alton and Deborah went on to rob several other people before finally fleeing Detroit, triggering an interstate manhunt of epic proportions. Yet the couple proved extremely difficult to track. Not only did they make a habit of befriending Good Samaritans, who'd often conceal them from the long arm of the law, but they'd sometimes confuse law enforcement by carjacking someone and quickly abandoning the stolen car, almost as if though they knew it would throw the cops off their scent. By the time Donna Williams' body was found in an abandoned house near Wayne State University, Alton and Deborah had reached Toledo, Ohio. From there, the couple veered southward towards Cincinnati, murdering a woman named Marlene Waters in the basement of her own home.
Wow.
Her
For
husband was
what?
later found badly beaten, but alive, in another apparent bid to leave one victim alive but traumatized by the death of their loved one, whose murder they were no doubt forced to witness. Marlene Waters' car was found abandoned just a few days later in a cornfield just outside of Lexington, Kentucky. Alton and Deborah had abandoned it there to give law enforcement the impression that they were hiding out in Lexington, but in reality, they veered off to nearby Williamsburg to continue their crime spree. On Monday, July 16th of 1984, a political science professor named Oline Carmichael was making his way back to his hotel room after a long day of lectures and seminars. He drove into the hotel's parking lot, shut off his engine, and then got out and locked the door. But then the moment he turned around from doing so, he saw 2 guns pointed in his face.
Oh my God.
They told me, "We want your money and all of it. Is your life worth more than your money?" Oline later said. He knew better than to talk back and proceeded to hand over his wallet, his car keys, as well as any spare change that he had. But just when Oline thought that the robbers were done with him, they popped the trunk of his car and then told him to get in.
Damn.
Alton and Deborah drove the terrified professor into Lexington, Kentucky, then stopped in a secluded area to shake him down. "Who loves you enough to get some paper, though?" he was asked. Oline replied that his wife might be able to get some money together, so Alton forced him to call her from a payphone. He was ordered to tell her that he had a gambling debt and was going to be killed if he didn't bring every penny that she could muster to a phone booth in downtown Richmond, Kentucky. Alton said they'd call again once they were on location, but for some reason, they abandoned the car on the I-75 with Olene still in the trunk. He had no idea why they didn't stick around to collect the money, which Olene's wife was only too willing to hand over. The move was
at
yet
least he
another
survived.
distraction, and the bodies of 2 victims were discovered back in Ohio. Alton and Deborah progressed to Indianapolis, where they murdered 75-year-old Eugene Scott before stealing his car. After a 53-day rampage, Alton and Deborah made their way back to Waukegan area on July 20th. This seems like an incredibly bizarre move given how notorious they were by that period, but for some reason, they chose to stroll around a local park before watching a pickup basketball game. They were recognized within minutes of sitting down at the bleachers, and under the guise of slipping away to buy a soda, one of their fellow attendees rushed to call the cops. Within a half hour, the entirety of Mason Park was crawling with police officers. Yet when they revealed themselves and rushed in to make the arrest, Alton barely flinched. "You got the wrong man, officer," he told one of the cops as he calmly cooperated. Deborah Brown kept quiet, identifying herself only as Dennis Johnson when asked to do so. Each seemed to think that they'd be able to talk their way out of being arrested, but when a loaded pistol and lock knife were found in their possession, their detention was assured. When news of the arrest hit the headlines, the entire Midwest
God damn, this shit look like a nigga scribble scrabbled in this shit. Is this even a real article?
breathed a deep collective sigh of relief. Those who'd witnessed the arrest said Alton appeared exhausted and underweight compared to his wanted poster, and police even speculated that the brazen attempt to watch a ball game was their own way of giving themselves up. After all, this was a couple who seemed to have mastered the arts of diversion, distraction, and evasion, and as one police officer put it, it was like they'd just run out of steam. Upon their arrival at the nearest police station, Alton and Deborah were questioned separately, but each invoked their right to remain silent. Yet after each were transferred to a federal holding facility and the severity of their situation hit home, Deborah Brown agreed to talk. Over the course of an in-depth 2-hour interview, Deborah gave a full and frank account of their violent crime spree, but despite cooperating with authorities, the severity of her crimes were too severe to warrant life imprisonment.
Wow.
She was eventually sentenced to die for the murders she'd committed and was confined to the all-female death row of Indiana's state prison system. Alton shared the same fate and was executed by lethal injection at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility on April 26 of 2002 at the age of 46 years old. He spent his last days appealing his death sentence, but despite one such appeal making it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, he received no clemency. Relatives of the couple's victims were able to watch the death sentence being carried out via a secured television link, but no recording was made of the event.
Now, why would I want to see a video of my literally like family relative getting killed? And what universe would I want to see that? Especially on a TV. Yeah, imagine having to watch your own son get murdered, being tied down to a chair and slowly, brutally murdered. I get he was an evil person. He killed a lot of people, but if I'm like the relatives, I'm not watching that. The fuck?
For his last meal, Alton ordered a filet mignon with sautéed mushrooms, fried chicken breasts, cornbread.
God damn, nigga ate all the shit. Like he really went all
brown
out.
Gravy, French fries, broccoli with cheese, salad with French dressing, onion rings, collard greens, sweet potato pie with whipped cream, butter pecan ice cream, and a cherry Coke.
Damn, nigga, all that food for one Coke? The food ratio not even matching up. You gonna drink the one Coke before you even halfway through the plate?
The observation room overlooking the execution chamber in Lucasville holds just 12 people, with a concertina door separating the convicts' witnesses from those representing the victims. Alton Coleman invited a spiritual advisor along with his legal team, meaning the small observation room was even more crowded than usual. At 10 a.m., Alton walked into the death chamber wearing a non-denominational prayer shawl with crosses and stars of David over his prison blues. After lying calmly on the execution gurney, he appeared to say something to the observers, but thanks to the chamber's thick glass, they couldn't hear him. He remained still as the guards fastened restraints on him and then attached the lines that would contain the 3 chemicals to a cannula that had already been fixed to his arm. Although just 3 chemicals are used to execute a prisoner, one to induce unconsciousness, another to stop breathing, and a third to stop the heart. A total of 8 syringes operate automatically once the button is pushed. It often takes 2 or 3 very long minutes for all the syringes to empty, and as the drugs began flowing, Alton began reciting the 23rd Psalm. By the time he reached, "He leadeth me beside the still waters," the sodium pentothal began to take effect, and he lost consciousness. Finally, he was pronounced dead at exactly 10:30 a.m. It was the end to a deeply painful chapter in the lives of his victims' families, many of whom faced a long and heart-wrenching journey back to normalcy. The grandmother of 7-year-old Tamika Turk said survivors would never know peace. "We'll never be the same," she said, "because what they took from us, they cannot give back."
Yep.
Hey friends, thanks so much for watching.
Bro, I'm still confused on like what was his motive. Like, I know what was the girl's motive for doing it with him. Like, she was raised in a household where her mom was a drug addict and her father was alcoholic, or vice versa. And she had a lot of head trauma, like as a little baby, or as a kid. So she wasn't as smart as a lot of people. She was a little bit slower. But I kind of miss it. Like, what was the reason for, like, them? Well, for him actually just going around killing people. I was just, that was a lie. That was a lie. But that was America's most disturbing serial killers couple. Let me know how y'all feel about that down below. With that being said, I'll see y'all boys later, dude.
I'm not trying to score. Your heart's an open door. I got the key. I'm trying to keep composure and some more. I know you want some more. Oh, oh. Can your body hear me? Want you to feel me?